and welcome to Beyond AI podcast. This is your host Ayesha Mubarak Ali, and in this podcast, we talk about tech trends of today, ideas of tomorrow, and how we can better navigate this entire world of AI and how it's changing the landscape for content creators, artists, creative industry, and creative careers. And it's such an important topic because we are witnessing some changes when it comes to how things are produced, how things are being told, how stories are being narrated. And these are, again, the topics that define human expression. They define how humans experience each other and they connect with each other. So when we think about these topics, it's important to know the perspective from people who are the pioneers, who have been in the field, who have been, not just seeing this technology advance, but they have a perspective of the traditional side of things as well. And today, our guest, she needs no introduction. She is a renowned artist, Shirin Neshat. She's a filmmaker and also a visual storyteller. Her work is around, obviously, a lot of interesting themes. She addresses identity, cultural duality at the intersection of political and personal narratives. In fact, her work also addresses exile, cultural conflict, and the role of women in society. She has especially been into multiple mediums. So her work spans over not just photography, video installations, and films as well. So a person like her who has seen technology, who has seen the development of narratives from different standpoints, I'm quite excited to have she on my show today. So first of all, Shiri, it's such a pleasure to have you here. In fact, an honor for us to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And because, we have Shiri here, who's such a diverse person, so I just want to start off this conversation by understanding, Shiri, I've seen your work develop over the years. I've seen your photographic works, and then I've been following your video installations. So speak to me how, whenever you're thinking about concepts, because this is so important for visual artists or creative community, we talk about concepts. So whenever you're thinking about a conceptual direction
Context.
or
Sorry, I just had a little hard time hearing you. A little
yeah,
context or concept.
concepts. So when we think about the concepts that define our work, then how much of these concepts are actually defined by the technology of that time? So I'm really interested to just have like a recap, or maybe you can reflect back and say that, okay, when the camera came, you were thinking about photography and suddenly you were then switching to cinema. So how was that switch like? And you can say whether your conceptual approach was kind of narrated by technology or not.
It's a very interesting question. The thing is, for me, every medium proposes new possibilities, and within those mediums over the years, because of the development of technology, things have evolved. I mean, just to give you an example, when I started as someone who worked on photography, it was a very different process. We didn't shoot digitally. It's analog, and I remember going to the labs and where they were developing the pictures, and you had to have multiple tests to see the contrast and all of that. And you with contact sheets, and you had to circle the images, and it was working with a photographer. I usually remember the kind of camera we used and everything, and then of course I wrote over the photographs and now fast forward, everything is digital, and we take far more pictures than we used to take, because it's we don't have to buy films, we don't have to load films. It's just a kind of a problem because you end up with much more choices. But the reality is you can also digitally correct the contrast, the composure of the film, of the picture. So all of that is done on the computer, but I still write on the images. So in some ways, I think, like many people, I sort of resisted the move to digital from analog with photography. And at some point, you're like, oh, it's no brainer. I have to do this. And then it just makes your job easier. At the same time, I think, you're overwhelmed with the amount of images that you didn't used to be. But with the labs that I work, their technology of printing has changed because they're using very different machines. And then with film, we used to shoot in 60 millimeter, 8 millimeter, then 35, and now it's come all digital. And the labs that I used to work with, where they developed the film, they're out of business, and we're working in a very different process when we're filming, when we are editing, when we're finalizing the picture. You have a lot more in your hand as possibilities on perfecting the images. But I mean, I have to say there is always this nostalgic aspect for people like myself who come from a generation who also has seen it in that way. But there's no doubt that, we have to grow with the time, and even the AI in terms of chat GPT and the AI helping script writers and, improving people like me who are not, English is not their first language, and sometimes you need better vocabulary or grammar. So I think as long as you're sensitive about the possibilities, but not overly take advantage of it, I mean, I think there are a lot of people who are missing the concept, but are really embracing the technology. And I think that is a problem. And people are taking pictures with their iPhones and things, they're masterpieces. I mean, some of them are, but in general, I think what remains at the core of the success of a work is the concept and not the technology. But the technology can help to enhance it, and an artist has no choice but embrace the evolution of technology. And in that case, I'm all for it. And again, I'm very lucky because I have experienced both periods.
Yeah. And Shirin, because again, I'm someone who has been following your work in much more detail, especially I find your work especially beautiful because it has that quality that makes you just sit and observe the stills, especially talking about your Women of Allah series, let's say, or Unveiling, like the work that you've done in the very start. So, when you think about these pictures and of course these visuals, as you said, they have this influence, and it has to have that approach. And then AI or any kind of machine learning tools that we have today is just like experimental tool. It's just a tool, just like a paintbrush or your camera, right? So in that way, because your work has that capacity to hold the attention, I want to know your perspective when we are bombarded with AI visuals all around us. We have these pictures that were created on just a click. What is your take on that? Because again, these pictures might not have that depth. Maybe depth is the right word, or not has that, let's say, conceptual framework, the background knowledge, or the vision why they exist. Because even if when we're taking our own pictures, it has some intention to document that memory. But with these AI images, just bombarded over our social media, our views, like we have these ads even done in AI. So, what is your take on these kind of visuals?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another really great question. If I understood it right, I think we're so inundated with technology and the possibilities, but I think everything goes back to the vision. I mean, if you're lacking a vision, um, it's just not going to translate. It's just not, no matter how savvy you are, how technologically informed you are. And in that case, I see it as in a very poetic way. I think, there's your intuition, there's your instinctual tendency about creating a vision and concept, an idea that you think that is timeless and it's going to affect people, that it will emotionally invigorate people. Then you look for the tools in how you can, control that vision and best present it. I mean, let's just say, for example, I use double channel projections, which is over the time I found the synchronizers that could control, it's not heavy technology, but the thing is the realization that I can tell my story in two parts and that I could be the master of the ceremony in the way I control, almost like an editor of my audience mind, the way they read the story right and left, they cannot see the whole thing. So I use the technology in a way to really punctuate my ideas about the contrast, the masculine, the feminine, and the mystical, the violence, the oppressive, the oppressor versus the oppressed, all of those, contradictions. So, so I know what I'm after intuitively in terms of my thematic, ideas. And then I try to say, oh, okay, how is this technology is going to help me. Another thing
Mm.
that I have to say,
Yeah.
I feel liberated by the use of technology. Like I'm in my computer making storyboards about my future films, only relying on Google images that I get from the
Mhm.
internet and then creating this massive storyboards on my iPhoto in my Mac computer. And it's really exhilarating because I am sitting here collecting images from all sources that the internet makes available. And then I put them together and create a new story. And I can't tell you. And then I bring music from different
Mm.
places, you know,
Right.
and then many years ago, I couldn't have done it. It had to be all
Mm.
through writing. I am
Absolutely.
not a good person with words. I'm good with images. But the pool of images that is available to me because of the technological advances makes it possible for me not to rely on a scriptwriter. You see, I can
Right.
tell a story by collection of these random images, and then I can show that to someone and they'll get it. It's a mood book. So, I've it's very interesting how much I have changed in terms of my
Mhm.
process. I mean, I'm still old fashioned. I use my hand to do the calligraphy. We do heavy duty productions and films, but I won't shy about it. We have to absolutely embrace what's available to us, but be very smart about it that in the process, we don't lose our soul. Because I think
And
that's the challenge, that is the difficulty, that you don't get overly seduced by technology where
Mhm.
the ideas get basically reduced to, oh, I can do this. It's spectacles, you see. And I think as a mature artist, as someone who's not super young, you know, I have my eye on that. I have my eye on making sure that there's a clear concept and there's something that I'm not going to compromise in the
And
process.
Shirin, yes, and you talked, quite powerfully about, the different themes that you're looking at, the contrast of ideas. And one thing that I always looked up to while I was, researching your work is that even in the process of the colors, like black and white, the contrast that you talk about, yeah, yeah, yeah. You use it quite powerfully and, with a conceptual reasoning. So, with AI, I feel like, again, you should not be, excited to this extent that let's just do everything with AI. I mean, still it's coming from humans and it's supposed to be for humans. Having said that, it has to have that same level of understanding, same level of conceptual approach. Now, I think as a visual artist myself, because I work with images, I talk about visible versus invisible, and how women are getting more and more, let's say, scrutinized in different ways. And we'll come to that in a minute. But these kind of dynamics or paradoxes that exist for women, when we try to explore them, then yes, we have to also then think about how AI is creating those kind of limitations, because you talk about women representation in your work, and how women are becoming, let's say, having different roles in the society. So what is your take on then, having worked on Iranian themes or maybe with a global perspective, that how do you feel these kind of deep fakes or the bad use of the AI can potentially change the way you see narratives? Because again, you come up with stories, you're a visual storyteller, and how are these themes kind of, if they are coming together in your work somehow, or are you responding to them? Because we as artists are quite sensitive to these topics, that what are we going to do, like if women are getting scrutinized and becoming visible in the wrong ways, or there's a potential for harm. So what is your take on that?
Well, actually, I was thinking while you were talking that one of the things that I really like is that the more I learn about certain advanced technology, whatever, myself, I can do it myself instead of having somebody else do it. So there's a great sense of independence in your, help with storytelling, that before I used to rely on other, like simple things like I can shift the color on my computer, in my photograph, on my video. I become much more independent as an artist, because I I really try to learn the material that are new. And in that case, I can be more direct about what I'm talking about. I mean, I can't even explain how liberating that is, because, um, before it used to be much more abstract. Like I had to visualize an idea. Oh, the story I want to make is about Iranian woman. She's been sexually exploited and now out of the prison and this and that. And now and now, you know, I, I can create that myself in a very rough way and get it almost to the end, all the solutions, because of the help of not always AI, but technology in many different ways. And then it's almost 80% there. Then I have to get the actress. Then I have to get the cameraman. Then I have to get the editor. Then I have to get the production design. But I am up until that level so free, and I can edit myself because I have now learned the tools in some editing processes, in some photography processes, and how to access information on the virtual world. And so I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, regardless who you are and what kind of stories you're telling, the platform has changed. You in many ways, you have too much possibilities in your hands, and therefore that's, infinity is a boundary. But at the same time, you are much more independent. I don't know if that answers your question. So I cannot say that the direction of my vision conceptually has changed at all. In fact, it hasn't. But what has changed, because, I'm still deeply, committed to issues that are, poetic, emotional, dealing with politically charged, and dealing with issues of religion and really social critiques. But at the same time, I really, really, I feel like part of the reason I've become so cross-disciplinary is because of the expansion of technology and the breaking of the boundaries between the different mediums. A single picture of a movie can be a photograph, or I can make photographs in a film. So there's been so much of this. The walls have broken down between the mediums that it's certain giving me certain freedom to cross them much more easily than I used to be. I never studied film. I never studied photography. I'm doing opera. I've never studied video art, but I'm doing all the four. And so that's partially because of the breaking down of the languages, and technology has really helped a great deal with that. I don't know if I answered your question properly.
No, you did. And in fact, I'll add on top of it, which is that, in that regards, I think all artists are to some degree collectors of images. And that's so interesting about living in this time, that we are consuming so much around us that it's just inevitable, and we're just expressing ourselves one way or the other. I think everyone is expressing one way or the other in images, and that's some interesting, I think, observation that I've felt about this time that especially we're living in. And of course, that has its own, ideas that how much it makes us visible, how much are we hidden, how much are we scrutinized. Because again, the previous ideas of scrutiny might not apply today. And even with our apps like Google Maps or AR filters, which are now integrated again with AI and, endless possibilities of VR integrations, our sense of scrutiny has changed, how people are viewing us, how much secure we are. And that takes me to the next point that I really want to highlight, considering that your work, has effortlessly integrated women identity, calligraphy that is hand done, along with the military equipments that we see as symbols in your work. And there's a lot of semiotics there. And artists who have been working, using AI to, let's say, create more symbolic artworks which are correct representations of things that they want. And I think they're not there yet, because I've personally used a lot of AI tools, and it's not there yet. So I just want your views. Maybe you've used a few apps or not. Maybe you have used ChatGPT to work on scripts, and you can say that, okay, maybe it's not actually giving me a good script when I say it, that give me some Islamic perspective. Let's say it is good at giving the Western perspective. It can show you a romantic idea of the West, but when we think about the Islam, the ideas of the East, there's this concept of Orientalism. It's never giving you the exact thing that you're looking for, because the data is not there. The data wasn't recorded in the right way. Again, what you're doing, that's why I think it's so important, because other than the fact that you're highlighting such huge topics related to politics, you're doing it in such a poetic way, and that just adds the layer. So what is your take? What are some of the tools that you've used so far? What are the limitations that you found in the data collection so far in these tools?
See, the way I look at it as an artist, you're dealing with totally rational issues and irrational issues. There's a lot of emotions in my work. There are things that I really understand, and these are socio-political, religious issues of the world. Then there's totally existential human issues that it all goes back to the soul. And so I think when you're dealing with AI, it's computer generated technology, is that there's no soul. You have you have this platform that could correct, readapt, even invent things, characters and storylines, but it lacks what's that irrational, that subliminal part of being a human, right? And so, as a person who's always dealing with this kind of contradictions, again, as I said, I'm not expecting AI to do anything other than helping me improve or embellish something that I've already constructed. I don't need ideas. You see, I have to say, I confess, sometimes I've written an essay or like that I'm worried about because I'm not a writer, and or a little short story that I really believe in, but I need help with, again, embellishing it. So that's very different, because I'm not asking AI to invent the story or come up with ideas. I'm asking to help improve the parts that needs improvement. And sometimes I see that AI just changing words around, or things that are really not a threat to it's like when you're working with collaborators, you present an idea and you're listening to their, this is something I do all the time. I work always in collaboration. I come with an idea and I ask them to listen to it and share their ideas and responses. And sometimes they come up with really good ideas. I say, that's fantastic. I'm going to take that in and, put that into the idea. And sometimes it's like, no, I really hate that idea. So you need to be open to criticisms and corrections or what, but at the end, it's your vision and you need to protect that vision. And unless there's a backbone to that vision, then you're very vulnerable, because you can sway all kinds of ways. And that's very dangerous. You see, I think there is a risk involved with relying so much on AI, because if you're overly vulnerable to, what you're looking for, and I think that's something that whoever goes to AI, they need to be certain why, and I think there should be a resistance. There should be a kind of a regulation, in the bigger picture in Hollywood. Let's say the studio shouldn't just rely on an AI generated script. It's just unethical. But there should be people who are script writers, but who could use AI as some embellishment. So that's my opinion. But it goes all back to the very core of what art is, that a computer could not create that. Only humans can. But
Hmm.
computers were created by humans, and therefore, we can ask for their help, but not as a way to, you know, cheat or steal ideas or be lazy. There's plenty of
Hmm.
people who are lazy. And I think
Yeah.
that's a decision, that's an ethical decision, moral decision that every artist, every writer, every person who's using AI has to make. Why am I approaching it? And I have to say, for the young generation, I am a little bit concerned because, of course,
Hmm.
they know so much more than we know. And also, they have so much in their access. But they also may be very dizzying, where,
Hmm.
they haven't had a chance to reflect like we have as older generation in terms of why are we doing what we're doing? What are the
Exactly.
really core concepts? What are the responsibilities uh, that we're taking? We have the iPhone, we have TikTok, we have
Yeah.
Instagram, we have this, and it's just too much availability of sources. And I think really we got to be worried about creating a
Good.
boundary. And the last thing I wanted
Definitely.
to tell you, ever since I was a young artist, I was really blessed by giving myself boundaries. I never disrespect people. I'm not critical of any religion. I'm not interested in making propaganda. I'm not going to make a decision for my audience who is the evil, who is good.
Hmm.
There are
Yeah.
just certain regulations that I've created for myself. And I think that we as young people also need to create boundaries, including the use of
Definitely.
AI. As long as we
Exactly.
have the moral, ethical, political consciousness, in terms of why, then we're good. Then we're good. Use it, and um, let it help you in whatever you're doing. But as an artist, I can't function without
Hmm.
those kind of boundaries.
And Shiri, what you just, I think you've touched upon a lot of important issues. I mean, regarding ethics and just the law. So, one thing that really got my attention while you were saying is that yes, we definitely need our why. If our why is strong, the back end reason, then AI is just a tool. Then we don't have to neither be feared by AI what it can do. It's just a tool, as I said. And then also the another thing you highlighted quite profoundly is that we need to have some governance. Like if people are going to use this in, let's say, cinema, then what are the rules that can govern this thing? Because again, if something is generating information, that information is coming from information that was fed to it. AI is not generating something out of nothing. It was fed on data, huge libraries of data, people's ideas. So the interesting usage that you have given us and to our audience who is listening, people who are interested to work on conceptual ideas, projects, we don't necessarily have to use ChatGPT to come up with ideas because a lot of people are doing that. I think if you have an idea, you can use AI to just quick your process, do automation. Automation, I think, is so far the best usage of AI because it can help you regulate and just create efficient results in your entire day. So that is one thing which I've taken away from Shiri, you. And then second thing is that when you're coming up with these concepts and ideas, think about your why, think about your truth, why you actually started to work on it. And I think that's so important because an AI, even if it's achieving perfection, let's say in images, let's say in ideas, even if AI can come up with a really good idea, I think it lacks that human purpose. And that's so important because we as artists, I cannot disassociate myself with art that I create. So artist and art goes hand in hand. And when we think about this idea, then the why comes naturally. And you don't have to force it. You have to have your truth, why you started something in the first place. And Shiri, your insights have been so amazing in bringing a broader perspective to this field, because I feel that if we have to regulate AI in the future, if we want the ethics to be there, then we want people like you who are actually pioneer in conceptual work, who have delved deeper into a theme that is true to you. And then you can say that because I've worked with this team with this amount of time, I can give you perspective on, let's say, how to make data much more diverse, how to bring representation to, and people who are not represented by the AI so far. Because again, let me tell you, AI is just selling a perspective of the West so far. Like, if I'm speaking in a much more broader sense, so we need people like you who can become part of those conversations more and more and ignite those conversations. It can't be just the data scientists. It just can't be. I feel artists, that's why it's so important, you know. But then having said that, we can't be the users of AI, completely reliant on it. So, Shiri, what are your last words? How do you foresee this technology helping you in some way in your future projects?
Well, I was going to say, in my field, in contemporary art, the landscape of art is changing. First of all, this idea of, you know, people being committed to being painter or sculptor, or, you know, people who go to the studio every day and do that. The new generation of young artists who I'm encountering through schools and, you know, in the art world, they're all doing multiple things. And they are the ones who are redefining that this idea of cross-disciplinary approach and the use of technology. I mean, you meet artists these days who, you know, simultaneously, a artist is writing a novel, making a movie, making sculptures, and having exhibitions, you know, and you understand that those boundaries, we're talking about boundaries, are broken, and they're very much using the AI or the technology in a big way. And this idea of art as these objects that are collectible, that go inside of people's home, I mean, it's pretty radical because, you know, art has been always about commodity, about money, you know, and then the new artists are defying all of these descriptions, you know, are saying that, no, I am going to make a sculpture, but then I'm going to make a feature length film for film festivals, and then I'm going to write a novel, and then I'm going to do this. And so this unpredictability of the young generation, because they, you know, first of all, you don't have to be necessarily trained or educated in any of it. You can train yourself by using technology. You know, you could use so many aspects that enhances your ability to express yourself, right? So I think the future is not really on my hand, but a new generation who are moving away from art that is object oriented, that is commodity, and that it's political as it is, you know, making a statement that we are no longer people who are willing to fulfill rich people's desires. We want to make work that is loud, that is goes viral, that millions of people see it, as opposed to, let's say, a gallery, 300 people. You know, that's another thing, is about the audience, you know, that the audience are shifting, the amounts of audience are shifting. So I think in the art world, we're in a state of flux. And the whole landscape is changing by not only technology, but new generation. And the last thing I wanted to tell you is I am very moved in the last few days listening how in America, a lot of the young people who weren't voting or who were not interested in politics and felt just totally uninterested, they are coming in the political landscape because their ideas of interpreting what's going on through the medium of technology and TikTok and memes and God knows ways that, you know, millions of other young people are now becoming mobilized to vote, which is, by the way, the only way to change this political landscape. And so I really feel that some very exciting things are happening. And only I come from the arts world, so I'm talking about it, but in all facets. And it all goes back to the energy that we are seeing of the young people embracing this new phenomena of the AI technology and using it not only, and it does happen a lot, of vanity, of banality, of stupidity, of self-promotion, narcissism, but also incredible, profound artwork, political messages, social messages, and I think that's profound. And I'm really hoping this is the direction we're going to move to. And that's why I wanted to talk to you, because, I was very touched by a young person reaching out to me on Instagram about doing a podcast. I said, no, why not? This is something that I welcome.
No, thank you so much for saying that, Shirin. I think you have given such a broader spectrum of everything, and you've covered it. And to be honest, this conversation can go on and on. And, I think there's so many different areas that you've touched on, but there's so much time that we had, and we have to wrap it up. But, thank you so much, Shirin, for your time. And, this has been great. I haven't heard you speak about AI or any of your
It's the
interviews.
first
So
time
this
I'll
was
ever
interesting.
speak about it, but you're asking such relevant questions. Thank you.
Yeah. So, because again, we are in that transitory period. It's not just about AI. It's not just about the projects that you've done so far. It's about the mid ground that we wanted to touch upon, and you've done it so profoundly. So, thank you so much, Shiri, and I wish you
Thank
good luck
you.
for your feature film.
And thank you for your time and your interest in talking to me. Bye, Zainab and
Thank you so
Ayesha.
much. Bye. Take care. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye.